Great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is M.R. Rangaswamy, the founder of Indiaspora. And I'm very, very honored and privileged today to host this launch of Pippa Rann Publishing. So let's give it 30 seconds or so for more people to join us. I know there are a lot of people on Facebook and other media and YouTube will be joining us. So let's give them just a little bit of time before we get started here. But I'm so honored and privileged to have my good friend Prabhu Guptara here with us, and you'll hear from him more. We also have another interesting panelist that will, I'm sure, undoubtedly embarrass Prabhu with stories from the old days when he was a student, as you'll find out, of Prabhu's late wife, Pippa. So let's just give it a few more seconds and we'll get going. But this is a great time and a great day to launch Pippa Rann Publishing. So we will get started momentarily. And I think today we have people from all over Europe. We have lots of people from India, and probably in today's virtual environment, I'm sure we have people from many other countries, and we hope you'll be able to send us some questions as we move along. Tell us how you know about Prabhu or Pippa, and do send us questions that we can ask Prabhu and Jyoti as well. All right. So it's two past the hour. I think we'll get started. As I mentioned, my name is M.R. Rangaswamy, and I'm the founder of Indiaspora. We are a nonprofit organization that connects the diaspora, the Indian diaspora, across the world. And our website is indiaspora.org. That's India, spora.org, and you can find out more about us or subscribe to our newsletter if you want to keep in touch with people like Prabhu and others who are doing such great work across the world. So again, a brief introduction of Prabhu. I know some of you know him, but just to tell you who he is and what his background is, he was born and raised in Delhi. He then taught at two Indian universities and then left India in the mid 70s, much like I did as well, during the days of the infamous emergency that was cast upon India at that time. Prabhu went to Europe. He survived in Scotland and England for the next many years. Later, he was appointed as an executive director at Wolfsburg, which was a subsidiary of the then largest bank, UBS. He was running think tanks for the bank. He was based in Switzerland and did amazing work and convening great conferences and events in his facility there. He returned to UK for family reasons in 2016, and he is based in Cambridge. He's involved in consultancy to company boards, very involved in the poetry and publishing world as well. So that's Prabhu's background. Also joining us is Jyoti. We were just chatting before this call started. Jyoti was one of the key folks involved in integrated reporting, which is now was a precursor in a sense to ESG, which is a new reporting systems that lots of companies are now following, mandated to follow, to show everyone how they're doing with sustainability, with the environment, and so on and so forth. Very important for the investment community to understand the role companies are playing in the future of climate change and many other things that are very, very important, not just to us, but to our children and grandchildren. And also, he's a co founder of North Star Transition, which seeks to catalyze and facilitate change across the planet. So you'll hear from both of them. So let's get to the business at hand. Basically, Pippa Rann Books is being launched this summer with the first books expected shortly. So what does this mean? So let me first go to Prabhu. This is the virtual launch. So Prabhu, I would like to welcome you. Delighted to have you do the formal launch virtually this year because of COVID and other factors. So Great to have you here. So, really want to start off by asking you, why did you start, especially in this COVID environment? What made you start Pippa Rann today?
Well, the story actually goes back several months to the time that my wife, Philippa, known as Pippa to her friends, died. Died is such a cold word. There are many different words in different languages. In the language, in my mother tongue, Hindi, we say became beloved of God. And in English, some people use the word promoted to heaven. But anyway, when that happened, of course, I was deeply in grief. And a few months later, when I began to sort of recover a bit, I then thought I should do something in her memory. What shall I do? And I was at a friend's home for dinner. This was the very first dinner invitation I'd accepted after she went to heaven. And at this dinner, this friend and his wife kindly gave me a very nice dinner and afterwards handed me a brown paper envelope and said, well, Prabhu, I suppose I'd better give this back to you now. And I looked at this black paper envelope, A4 size, roughly foolscap size, as you would say in America, and opened it, and out came letterheads, Pippa Rann Books. This was a publishing company that my wife Philippa had founded in the 1990s, had published 4 or 5 books, just when we had suddenly and unexpectedly moved to Switzerland. So, of course, learning a new language, coping with a new culture, putting children through school in a strange system, no time or energy to do anything with it. Pippa Rann Books disappeared. Except this friend of ours had been given a quire of paper, a load of paper with letterheads in case something needed to be done or sent internally in England and so on, cheaper from here than from Switzerland. And he'd used up all the paper except about 20, 25 sheets. And instead of throwing them away as I would have done, here he was handing them back to me, just at the time I was thinking, what shall I do in her memory? So as this came to me, I thought, this is exactly what I must do. And of course, because Philippa loved India so much, I thought this publishing house should be focused on India. So that was the reason to think of starting it, and it's taken me all this time to do it because, of course, I know nothing about publishing, and publishing has changed anyway over the years. It's become very technological, and everything is much more complicated now than it used to be. So it's taken me months and months and months to do it. But I'm delighted that we're here today, ready for the launch.
Myself, I was just going to tell you, Prabhu, just what an inspiring way to do this. Something that is in living memory of your wife. And so, what I want to do is to get Jyoti just for a moment to kind of talk a little bit about his childhood and school times, and just talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about Pippa. So, Jyoti, welcome.
Well, MR, thank you. And thank you, Prabhu, as well, for inviting me to join this conversation. It's a real privilege because as a kid growing up in India, I met this young woman who had come all the way from England and was working in India. And it was a country that she loved. And I had the chance to have Pippa Rann as my Sunday school teacher when we went to church, and it was great fun having Pippa there. And of course, at one point, she even announced that she was going to get married, and so we were all invited to her marriage. And so, Prabhu, you may or may not remember, but I think it was my parents really who got the invitation to come to the wedding. We were there too, so I remember you and Pippa getting married. So that was great fun. But you know what, Prabhu? I remember so many different things about you, the stuff you've done over the years. Being a publisher never came up in that. You know, that didn't seem to be part of your CV. And I've looked at publishing as being something that seems super complicated. The world is changing out there. Why do you feel that this is something you want to take on? I know you want to do it for Pippa, but what is it that you feel that that Pippa Rann Books will be doing out there in the marketplace?
The market is very saturated. Lots of publishers, lots of self-publishing, a huge amount of self-publishing, and indeed a lot of the business is moving beyond publishing into the media. So a lot of Twitter, obviously, a lot of Facebook, a lot of LinkedIn, but also a lot on YouTube and a lot of podcasts. So the market has come in different forms from the single form that I used to know it in, of course, growing up and through most of my professional life. But I feel that books have a kind of permanence and solidity, even though media programs are obviously much easier to digest and more popular. I feel that books have a kind of lasting value, and there is nothing equivalent to holding a book in your hand and reading it. Kindle and stuff is great for convenience, but if you want to mark it, and the brain's memory works in such a way that if you're reading a book and you remember a sentence or a paragraph or a reference, it's much easier to go to it in a physical book than on Kindle, unless you remember the exact wording, the exact phrase, in which case, of course, you can search it. But otherwise, your brain tells you, oh, it's roughly a fifth of the way through the book on the left-hand side, two-thirds of the way down the page, and you flip around to it, and you very easily find it. For random access, nothing beats a book. Anyway, I have very little competence in the media. I know a little bit about books because of having written them and having dealt with publishers and so on. I felt a bit more comfortable starting with that. But of course, the company is called Pippa Rann Books and Media. And it could be that someday children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, your children, grandchildren, Jyoti, your relatives, MR, might be minded to come in to Pippa Rann Books and Media. Why not? But for the moment, it's books.
Oh, that's terrific. And so, probably a follow-up question to that is what kind of books? What is going to be your niche in this space? Because a book publisher can do many, many things. So, can you talk a little bit about your vision as to what kind of books that you would like to publish?
The idea is to publish anything which promotes democratic and humane values in some way. So the first book that we're publishing is a work of political satire. And this is political and, in fact, in some ways you could argue social satire, but it's not aimed at any particular person or party or politician. It's generally looking at the whole scene and laughing at the whole scene as a way of drawing attention to the shortcomings that need to be addressed. But it's stomach-achingly funny. You will burst out laughing at least once in every paragraph. It is so wittily written. But the second book is completely a contrast to that. It is a book titled Seeking God, Seeking Moksha, and it's a summary of the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, and it's a summary of the New Testament set against each other on facing pages, point by point. So what Sri Krishna taught about God, point 1, point 2, etc., and on the facing page, what Jesus taught about God, point 1, point 2, and so on. And it's very, very fascinating to see the parallels between them. Absolutely fascinating. Now, you know, people say all religions lead to God and so on, but most such statements are made out of ignorance. Now, here is a way of actually seeing two scriptures in parallel to each other. And I'm astonished, but it's never been done. And I'm looking forward to seeing a whole series of other such books. I'm happy to commission a whole series of other such books, looking at the Gita and the Quran, or the Gita and the Jain scriptures, or the Buddhist scriptures, or the Jewish scriptures in the Quran, or whatever else. And there's huge scope for this sort of thing, and it just hasn't been done. It's amazing to me. So that's a completely different kind of book, as you can see. A third kind of book that I'm publishing is a memoir by a British graphic artist and illustrator called Biman Malik. He has published the memoir in Bengali, and I've commissioned its translation into English, and it'll be published in English. In Bengali, it's called Durer Durga, which means distant Durga, because of course he's come away from, born and brought up in what is now Bangladesh and West Bengal, but he's been living in the UK. But of course, in English, you can't say distant Durga; it doesn't make the same sense. So we're calling it distant goddess in English. So you can see they're very different kinds of books. I'm looking at books, Indian cricketers in British cricket. I'm looking to co-publish a book with another publisher, looking at Asian actors on British stage and television. There is a book that we're looking at called Where Did We Go Wrong? Reflections on 200 years of modern education in India. So you can see there's a huge range of books that we're looking at. Bollywood spirituality. And the reason we're looking at this wide range is because we think that there is scope for this wide range of publishing from outside India based in the West. Of course, there are publishers based in India and they do excellent work, and that's fine. And of course, they are also publishing for an international market, and that's great. But there are some books that, for whatever reason, Indian publishers won't publish or don't publish. And as far as I know, Pippa Rann Books is the only publishing imprint based outside India, but focusing wholly on India, which has the possibility to publish this range of books.
Oh, fabulous! I think the vision is so exciting. I can't wait for the books to come out. Any idea when we can see the two books that you mentioned?
Well, the first book will be published on the 31st of this month, and links to that will be available on the Pippa Rann Books website. Or if you join the mailing list, then of course they can be emailed to people. So on the 31st, we have the launch of the first book, which is titled Politics, Democracy, and Mumbo Jumbo. But you've got to look at the title, here it is, to see how funny the title is. You can see that politics is misspelt, democracy is misspelt, and Mumbo Jumbo is misspelt. And it's politics, democracy, and Mumbo Jumbo, babus, mantris, and netas making our nation, unmaking our nation, all at the same time, if you see what I mean. So it's a fun book. Shashi Tharoor has kindly written the foreword, and he will also be involved, of course, in the launch of the book, as well as at least one or two other people. So we're greatly looking forward to the launch of that book.
Fantastic. Prabhu, if I might interrupt a bit, what is the website? Can you give us the URL for the website where people can go subscribe to your newsletter and get information?
Yes, it will be actually flashed up on the screen towards the end of the program, but it's just www.pipparanbooks.com. And Pippa Rann is Pippa, and then RANN. So Pippa Rann Books is one word.com. Thank you.
Fantastic. Can't wait to read the first one coming out. And Jyoti, going back to you briefly, when you had Pippa as a Sunday school teacher, did she kind of talk to you? What did you get this feeling that she would become a publisher, or were you a mere kid going to Sunday school? Did you have any inclination that life would turn many different ways and you would, end up here?
Well, I certainly had no idea that was going to be happening. I was less than 10 when Pippa was my Sunday school teacher, so it was just great fun to have someone who was a warm and friendly person, but also really keen to share her love for the book, which was the Bible. So that was exciting. I don't know how she's going to feel about the first book coming out and every single word in the title is misspelled. She might have some concerns about that, but we're going to have to take that as it comes and see how it works, Prabhu. But Prabhu, we live in times where if you're going to be writing about India, India is such an amazing, dynamic, happening place. But it sounds like you're prepared to take an honest view about India, the good things, and perhaps some of the things that haven't worked out as well. And at this kind of time where the extremes on the social narratives are so amplified by social media and various commentaries that are out there, you could end up either being someone who is glorified for what you're doing to take the India story out, or being absolutely vilified because you've missed the point of where this great India is going. And I presume at least knowing, I know you have a very balanced view of India, which covers India in its strengths and perhaps understanding some of its weaknesses as well. How prepared are you to be involved in this sort of the extreme ends of the narrative that could happen around Pippa Rann media?
Well, you have to do what you have to do, and then people will do what they have to do. But I should make it absolutely clear, we are not against anybody or against anything. We are for India. We are for Indians. We are for everybody who's doing good to India in whatever way. And nobody is perfect, right? However brilliant you may be, however intelligent you may be, nobody's brilliant. Everybody is going to make mistakes from time to time. And if anybody is in authority, then obviously the impact of those mistakes is going to be magnified. So all that we are doing is we are saying, here is good stuff, here is bad stuff. And unless we recognize the good and celebrate it, unless we recognize the good, we will never be able to celebrate it. And unless we recognize what is wrong, we'll never be able to correct it. So we are in that mode of holding up a mirror to what is happening in the country, all the good things that are to be celebrated, and some of the things that are perhaps most egregiously wrong, which we all need to pay attention to in order to correct and make right so that India can move forward even better and even faster, and so that all Indians can flourish and be happy and prosperous, which all of us want, right?
Right. So Prabhu, as a follow-up to the book that's being launched, how do you plan to disseminate it in today's COVID environment? Bookstores are not open. There's this company called Amazon that's very good at delivering books and so forth. So what is your plan to get us the books? Is it a Kindle version or an Audible version, or what's the plan behind that?
Well, certainly Amazon will be a very important partner to us, at least to start off with. It could be that as bookshops open and so on, things change, and then, of course, it'll become a less important partner, possibly. But in the meantime, of course, Amazon is going to be a very important partner to us. So they will both print and deliver books around the world, as they do, and both on e-publishing and as audiobooks. We're hoping to have books out. So physical books, hardback, paperback, e-books, and audiobooks will all be, in principle, available. Not necessarily of each title, but where and as appropriate. So, yes.
And how are you going about looking for authors, ideas, scripts, and so forth? What is your plan? Because you're living in the UK, you're living in Cambridge. How do you plan to look at the whole market, the types of books? What is your plan there?
Well, scripts have already started coming in, which is great, and I'm looking to commission certain scripts. So I've gone out looking for authors for those kinds of books. I've mentioned some of them. Bollywood Spirituality, for example, is a book that I'm looking out for authors for. The book on British cricketers and Indian cricket, I've found somebody and we're discussing it. And I hope that we'll be able to sign a contract for that fairly soon. But generally, the word is spread through the network, and people have already come and brought manuscripts to me. For example, a friend living in a particular country has brought a book about a woman who rode over the Himalayas in the early 20th century. And her autobiography, which has never been published till now, was brought to me in the language of that country, and we're looking at translating it and publishing it ourselves, of course, in English. So all kinds of books have already come my way, and the website and so on is just being officially launched today. So as the website goes out, as this program goes out, and so on, as word spreads through your network, Jyoti's network, etc., then I'm sure there'll be many, many more manuscripts coming my way. As usual, with every publisher, probably far more manuscripts to plow through every day than I can even dream of publishing. So much good stuff is going to be turned away, I'm afraid, but that's always the case. Because at the end of the day, you're looking for the nugget, the absolutely, the book that must be published today sort of book.
So, Emma, I wonder if I could pick up on that and just ask you the question. With your your network, the Diaspora network, how do you think a publishing house that's focused on India would be received in amongst the Indian diaspora? Are they going to be interested, or do you see that really Pippa Rann needs to concentrate on India? The Indian
I think a good question, Jyoti. A very good question. I mean, for those of you out there in the audience, just a quick snapshot, a fact sheet on the diaspora. The 30 million of us living outside of the homeland. Okay, so it's a very large population spread across dozens and dozens of countries. So you have this 30 million diaspora that's all over. The big diasporas obviously are where Prabhu and you live, which is in the UK. There's another good portion living in Canada, another large contingent in the US, and then we have Singapore and Dubai. These are probably the 5 hubs of the Indian diaspora. And if you follow the 80-20 rule, this is where all the wealthy Indians live in these 5 countries, the most successful Indians across all professions. And then, of course, we do have pockets all over, South Africa or Fiji or Guyana, and you can go on and on. But so just in that segment itself, Jyoti, there's a huge audience that's very interested, not just in India, but what are books coming out, knowledge coming out of the diaspora itself. And as you know, in the US, there are many, many authors now of Indian origin. Take Jhumpa Lahiri, or many authors, Chitra Devakurani, and all these people have come out with successful books. Same thing in the UK. I forget the lady who wrote that famous book. Gosh, I'm trying to, the name will come to me, but there's so many authors. Of course, there's Salman Rushdie. There's so many people in the diaspora across the world who have written incredible books. I'm sure there are people in all the other diaspora countries as well. So I think that itself, Jyoti, is a huge market, both for manuscripts, but also an audience. And also the other good thing about, I think, this audience, they're prepared to pay a little bit more for the book, maybe than in India. India, you get volume and low cost per book. And in these other countries, the volume might be less and it's a higher ticket item. So I think, I think Prabhu is on to something here by harnessing the curiosity of the diaspora combined with the curiosity in India if you get people of diasporic origin writing books. So I think this niche that you've got here is a fantastic one, and I think can be leveraged a lot in the years to come.
And Prabhu, one for you, a question for you, perhaps.
Yep.
We've got Indians deeply, deeply engaged on technology, which I know is something that you have, you're quite involved in. We've also got Indians involved in business. In fact, some of the biggest tech companies in the US are currently being led by people from India. So we have technology, we've got business, and then of course we have books. Is there a way in which Pippa Rann media, Pippa Rann books might be able to participate in that particular space? Because after all, loads of people are reading technology books and they're reading business books. Is there something that given your own background in business, etc., is there something there that you see Pippa Rann books moving to?
Yes, well, we have already started the 75th year of Indian independence, and next August, almost to the day, not quite, but almost to the day, will be the 75th anniversary of Indian independence. So I'm planning a series of books to come out around then. And one of them will be on the rise of Indian IT. And I'm not sure if it'll just be one book or there'll be a series of books, depends on my being able to find authors. But the rise of Indian IT is certainly a story that the world ought to know. And in fact, many books have been written on it. But a 75-year retrospective, looking back over the 75 years, would be quite fascinating. Similarly, a book on business in India over these 75 years. I feel that the story of Indian business is not as well known as the story of Indian IT, partly because, of course, IT practitioners, administrators, managers, executives are there in the West, in Western companies, as well as lots of Indian IT programmers and so on. So they're much more present in the consciousness of the West. But Indian businesses as such are not so present. And the story of Indian business, which is an absolutely exciting story, has not really been told in terms of a story over 75 years. Similarly, the impact of Bollywood, I feel, is not yet properly recognized by people in the West, except inside the industry. So people inside Hollywood are very aware of Bollywood, partly because, of course, they've been influenced by Bollywood, partly because some of the actors have been acting in Hollywood, partly because many of the productions are being partly or fully financed out of Indian film companies. So people in the industry know. But you ask the average person walking down the high street in Cambridge or London or San Francisco, they would have no idea. They would have no idea of the importance of Bollywood. So the story of Bollywood over 75 years, I think, is certainly worth passing on. So these are the kinds of books that I'm looking to do. And I'm also looking to do, if possible, a series of books looking at Sikh businesses in India over the last 75 years. Jain businesses in India over the last 75 years, Parsi businesses in India over the last 75 years, and so on. But it depends on being able to find authors to do those kinds of books. So, yes, I am thinking along these lines, and any ideas are always welcome. If you want to write a book, Jyoti, send in a proposal.
Yeah. No, that's terrific, Prabhu. I think one of the things I might ask you to do, and for the listeners as well, is Indiaspora has recently published a business leaders list. And what we did was we looked at the Fortune 500 companies and the Forbes 2000 company list. And to our surprise, we found there were 60 CEOs of Indian origin on this list. Which was fascinating. And Jyoti mentioned, the CEOs of some of the tech companies. That was just the ones that are well known. The Indian origin CEOs running chemical companies, consumer companies, banks, healthcare companies, biotech companies, and so forth. So I think, there's a story absolutely to be told. How did these people all leave India, go to the West? And they are running now, get this, companies with market cap of $4 trillion. They employ 3.5 million people. And so this is like a G7 nation. And so this story is just starting to be told, starting to be recognized. So I really think, there's much more opportunity here. By the way, there are people watching us on Facebook and on YouTube, and there are questions coming in. So one of the first questions from a Scott Pryor is, will non-Indians enjoy and appreciate the first book?
My instinct is to say, if you're not acquainted with Indian politics, even if you're Indian, you probably won't enjoy it as much. But a friend of mine, quite a good close family friend, sent a message to me saying, I'm going to buy many copies of the first book and give it to all my friends. And I thought, I'd better put in a warning to this good friend. And then I thought, should I? So I printed out a copy of a book, gave it to a neighbor of mine, John Oakes, who lives down the road and who has been in PR and so on all his life. And I said to him, John, please read this book. He does not know Indian politics really well, no more than any average English person. Read this book and tell me whether you think you would enjoy it and other people like you would enjoy it. And he has just come back to me and said, yes, I think this is a very well-written book. It's a very wittily written book. So though I don't follow all that's going on, there's enough here to keep me amused. So there you are. If you're prepared to work at the book, because obviously there are bits of language you won't understand, Indian words are thrown in, there are references you won't understand, but you can look some of them up, of course, on the internet. So if you're prepared to have a laugh and then think, I don't understand that, I should go and follow that up, the book, it will be both entertaining and educative for any Westerner any non-Indian who wants to make the effort.
Great. Another well-wisher question from Richard Gutteridge. I'm wondering if there are any publicity material that can help in marketing the book and your business. So, what does one do to help publicize the upcoming book and your business in general?
I think the easiest is just to go to the website and make the website known to friends, because then you can see all the information. You can see the information on the books, on the authors, on all kinds of aspects of the publishing business that we will be, every month we will be doing, and this is pretty unique, I think, we will be doing a book of the month from another publisher. We'll be featuring a book of the month on India, of course, or on the Indian diaspora from another publisher. And every month we will be doing a book review of the month, a review of another book from another publisher. So we're hoping that this will become a way of the website being more than just a showcase for our books, but will become a showcase for books on India. And God willing, in time, if we go more in the media direction, then of course more media as well. But for the moment, I think it's quite ambitious to want to be a showcase, even for books on India. So much is being published. It's fascinating.
Oh, fantastic. So, Jyoti, I want to pull you back into the conversation. Do you have any thoughts on any other types of books that might be of interest? I think you brought up business as one avenue. Are there other segments, Jyoti, that you think would be something that Prabhu should be looking at and engaging with?
Well, thank you for asking that. I think from my perspective at the moment, across the world, we face crises when it comes to climate, when it comes to biodiversity loss, when it comes to social inequalities. And India is going to play a big part in those crises, either because India will be exacerbating those crises or because India will play a role in helping us find a way out. And so, to me, we need to be exploring ways in which the entire global system can change, and perhaps India will provide some of the people and the ideas and the innovations and the technologies and so on to take these forward. And if we think of the basics, we need to work out what to do with food. We need to work out what to do with water. We need to think about energy, transport. All of these basic systems that we take for granted in our world, they're all coming under question at the moment. And India has these issues in spades. And so I would certainly love to see an exploration of this. Now, Prabhu, I'd love to hear from you as to whether you think this could be an area that is in the bailiwick for Pippa Rann books.
It is indeed. I'm personally very concerned about these issues, and I think all of us are. The challenge is how to represent these in a book. Now, I can think that it would be possible to have a collection of positive stories about people who've come up with technologies that are being implemented, which are sorting out some of these issues in India. And some of these technologies would have a global application. Now, those kinds of things would be easy to publicize, as well as the stories of individuals who've led the way in some particular aspect of addressing these issues. So biographies are very easy to do, and collections of technology stories which have been usefully, successfully applied in India but have a worldwide market would be another great way to do it. But I'm happy to have ideas from others.
Yeah. So Prabhu, I got a question from one of the viewers. Have you thought about kind of combining maybe a book of poetry with short stories? Much like you were saying, you had a book which compared to religions, what do you think about a book that might have a poem and then a short story and a poem and a short story and so forth?
Well, there is a Japanese form of literature called haibun, Haibun, in which a story is told which provides the context for a poem, usually a very short poem. Sometimes the story is quite long, let's say 500 words, and the poem is 3 lines, a haiku. But the story enriches the haiku, the 3-line poem, and vice versa. That's never really been popular in India, but it would be very interesting to see if there could be something like that, poetry and short stories. Poetry, I'm afraid there's not much of a market for. Spoken poetry is different. Performance poetry has really had a huge revival over the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years. But written poetry has not had the same revival. Short stories, again, are actually sadly very little publicized from India. And somebody I know, Indu Chandrasekhar, has actually started a website specifically for short stories from India. So if she was here, I'd be very happy to talk to her and ask her what she thinks the potential is for short story collections of. She publishes books as well, so I'm sure she's doing it anyway. So yeah, open to all ideas.
Great. By the way, you just got congratulations from, I believe, a friend, Pam Bruch. I might be
Right.
butchering her last name.
Pam
She
Bruch
says,
from Zurich.
congratulations, wishing you all the best with your new venture. Fantastic legacy in honoring Philippa. So just a word of congratulations.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you. Much appreciated.
And moving on to another set of questions I have here. You've talked about a diversified portfolio. You're going all the way from Bollywood to politics to business and beyond. How are you going to manage this diverse portfolio of books? Because there are so many different markets and so forth. What is your strategy there?
I'm not sure that I have a strategy, actually, MR. I'm hoping, well, I should put it differently. My strategy is beginner's luck. And what I mean
MR, you are an angel investor. You might have to give him some advice on
I agree. I agree, Jyoti. My success was I've invested in 100 companies. Okay, and one of them, it was like hitting the lottery. One of them hit, so I look like I'm a very successful guy. So I think some of that is luck, and I think some of that is actually publishing 10 or 20 books to get a big hit, right, Prabhu? I mean, you must have studied the industry,
Yes, I mean, portfolio theory, of course, is good investment theory and comes in here. If you publish a variety of books and if one of them is successful, that's great. Of course, all could fail. So,
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, you see, I am an amateur at publishing. I've never had a day's experience of actually doing any publishing. And I've been learning as I go along, wrestling with all the problems. I have a website that is being built by a non-professional website builder. And he has been going through all the problems of building a website. Marketing is being done in a totally amateur way. But in spite of all that, I think what matters is the community. If everybody pulls together and passes on the word and encourages and supports, then in spite of all the failures and all the difficulties and all the inefficiencies, I think we will make a success of it. What matters at the end of the day is the quality of the content that is being published. If the quality of the content is good, then I think it will sell. And the first book, I think, is so funny that it's bound to sell. And the second book, for anybody who's got any spiritual interests or academic interests, I think is a very fascinating book to get into. So I think, though the audiences are quite different, and we are doing our best to market to these different audiences, we are amateurs at each of them.
Yeah.
So we need all the support and all the help that we can get, and all the good wishes and all the prayers and everything that we can get.
And on your first book, since it's about politics, I'm sure someone in India will see themselves in the book, and maybe that'll cause a little bit of controversy that might sell more books. Who knows, right?
Well, we're not setting out to be controversial. We're setting
Right.
out to be humorous. But you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, it could easily become controversial. You never know.
But
So,
that's not your
MR,
intent. Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're anything like me, as part of the Indian diaspora, you love Indian food and would welcome that everywhere. So,
Right.
what do you think? Do you think we should be recommending to Prabhu that he should be thinking about cookery and and that sort of stuff? I mean, I'd love to see
Yeah.
Indian cookbooks that are focused on bringing some of the new ideas that have emerged within the diaspora as they have interacted with different cultures and so on to take Indian cooking into new spaces. How do you feel that would go down?
Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating one. In fact, when we Indiaspora did a ball for President Obama, one of the things we tried to bring as the food element to that event and one of our forums as well was, Indian food today around the world is Punjabi food, basically, right? And you don't get any other kinds of food. So we had our chef, we challenged our chef. She's actually been on Master Chef and been an amazing chef, Manit Chauhan, who is in the US. So we challenged her to bring food from North, East, West, and South. And she did an incredible job of finding two or three food items from Calcutta, two or three from Chennai, some from Mumbai, and some from the North, and really integrating the food. So, having done that with the Indian side, it was a big hit at our event. Maybe there's a cookbook, like you said, Jyoti, that would take an item that was influenced, like chicken tikka masala is really a British dish, but taking something like that with something that's become an American dish from Indian origin and something from Europe and Asia, and putting that into a cookbook could be a good one. What I'm told, though, I'm not a publisher, but the problem with cookbooks is you need to really spend a lot of money on expensive photography because a lot of the book is based on how good the dish looks. So I think that might be the challenge there.
That's very true. But I think there are also hybrid books, as it were, that would be possible. For example, I'm looking at a book on Kerala cookery by a particular family that has been in the business of hotels, Indian style hotels, for 3 or 4 generations. And they have certain recipes that have been handed down in the family. And they have a particular tradition. Every Sunday, they throw what the Sikhs would call a langar. So this is
Yeah.
a feast for the community. They're from a particular village, and on an island. So this village on an island off the coast of Kerala every Sunday has food from this particular hotel, if you want to call it that. And so there's a fascinating story to be told about how this village on this little island off the coast of Kerala has become a attractive place for people to come from all over the world to sample this cuisine and to sample the lifestyle. And of course, there's a story to be told about the vessels and about the way you cook and everything, as well as stories of the people who founded this and the economics of it and the business of it and so on. So there's a very fascinating story to be told around that. Similarly, I think, as you were saying, there is a story to be told about the influence of Indian cooking on other cuisines. And if there's a good writer who comes along with a proposal on that, looking at the influence of India on Trinidadian cooking or Guyanan cooking or Fijian cooking, would be absolutely fascinating to have that. Or indeed, lesser known Indian cuisines. We talk about Calcutta and Chennai and Bombay and North India. Yes, but India is so much more than that. What about Mizo cooking? What about Naga cooking? What about cooking from the tribal regions of India? What about Odia cooking? So there are loads and loads. In India, the cuisine changes, I say, every 50 miles
Right.
because the ingredients are different, the topography is different, the climate is different, everything is different. So there's a whole load there to discover. The problem is
By the way,
finding appropriate authors.
we got instant feedback. We got instant feedback from a viewer that says, "Ooh, a cookery book for the non-Indians sounds wonderful." Yeah. So validation right there from one of the folks watching us. So again, this is a media that you could use, Prabhu. When one of the things I might suggest is when you launch the book, you're going to do a show. This is the kind of thing that gives you also feedback as to what else people are interested in. And today's world, in the old days, you had to publish a book, print it, and release it to find out if it's sold or not. Now, I think you can get a lot more instant feedback through surveys and word of mouth and through Facebook and all these channels. So right there, you got someone who says he'll buy a copy. So you got the first one sold.
Terrific.
We got
Yes.
Jyoti. He seems like he's got all kinds of ideas for us. Jyoti, any other books we can validate?
Well, listen, Prabhu's already talked about the cricket story, and to me, India and cricket go so tightly together. And whenever I go to the cricket ground, I'm a member at one of the big cricket grounds in England. And we go there, and it's absolutely packed with Indians, and the food is largely from India. It's a celebration of much of what India is about. And in fact, I remember this game. I took my son at the time; he was 8 years old, and we went along to watch India and Pakistan play a warm-up match for I think it was a Champions Trophy tournament or something like that, and it was absolutely filled to the rafters with Indians and Pakistanis, and we had an amazing time together. It was really raucous, like an English cricket ground usually isn't, and it was very colorful, and the food was in good supply, and the sights and the sounds and smells were all there. And at the end of the game, this is my son who had been to cricket grounds from the time he was 4. When he went back home, his grandmother asked him, "Where were you?" And he said, "Oh, we went to the cricket ground, but I'm not sure which country we were in." Because he'd never experienced anything like it. So Prabhu, it's got to be a significant challenge to find a way to capture the best of India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and Nepal and Sri Lanka and all of that in the joy of this subcontinental experience, because I think that's a significant thing to do as well.
I should say that Pippa Rann Books is only an imprint, and it's an imprint of a larger entity called Salt Desert Media Group. And Salt Desert Media Group is the company behind Pippa Rann Books, of which Pippa Rann Books is just the first imprint. So we are hoping that as time goes on, we get resources and people and so on attracted to it, that other imprints will be started, maybe by Pakistanis, by Bangladeshis, or on technology, or on environment, or whatever. So the potential is there for other imprints as well, not simply to look at India. India is Pippa Rann Books, but other imprints could be doing other similar things as well. So, yes.
Fantastic. So a couple of more comments coming in from YouTube and Facebook. John Oakes says, new ventures attract a lot of manuscripts and a lot of rejection slips as well. And having been privileged to see early submissions to Pippa Rann, they're all of high standard. So it looks like you're sourcing very high standard manuscripts. So that's good to hear. Mohan Patnaik says, I agree with Jyoti. Cricket and food is a perfect combination to create excitement and keep people together. So hey, why not even throw a cricket match with food? As part of publishing a book. From Ranjit Guptara, I don't know if this person is related to you. Some say we grew up in a library, looking ahead at the next generation in terms of legacy. Do you have absolute number of books or annual number of books that you want to publish? Do you have a limit? Do you have a goal?
I would love to publish as many books as possible that are really, really good quality, but I have no particular targets. But I think in the first year, that is this year, I might succeed in publishing 4 or 5. And next year, it might go up to 10 or 12. And then we shall see.
Great. So at least, and you've got your 4 or 5 in queue, I would think, right now, right? You've already got 2
Indeed.
coming out. Yeah. So at least you got the robust launch year.
And of course the cricket and food book. Don't forget that one.
The cricket and food
Yeah.
book is very important. Yes.
So no, this is terrific. The book launches. The first book on politics launches August 31st.
It is.
So
Yes.
what
Same
are the
time.
plans?
Sorry,
Yeah.
same time, 2 o'clock on the 31st, 2 o'clock UK time, 6:30 India time, 9 a.m. of course on the East Coast, and 6 a.m. on your side of the world. MR, thank you very much for waking up so early and hosting this and starting us off in this wonderful way. But on the 31st, we have the launch of this book, Politics, Democracy, and Mumbo Jumbo. On which date at the latest we'll announce the date of publication of the second book. I'm just waiting for a few endorsements to come in. The text is finalized, the cover is finalized. I'm just waiting for the endorsements to come in. In fact, I think if my technical friends have the second cover ready, we might see the second cover. Here we are. Can you see the second cover?
Let's see. I think it's coming up. Let's see. But did we show the first cover, Prabhu? Or
We did show
no?
the first cover. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Can you see the second cover now?
Yeah, I can see it.
But MR can't.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, if the audience can see it, that's good.
Well, if the audience can see it, you should be able to see it. But anyway, if you go to the website, you'll see both the covers available. And so we're just waiting for endorsements to come in. Sorry.
I believe that it can be seen on YouTube and stuff. I just got a text.
Okay,
so
great.
that's great to see. Another question. Questions are just coming in very quickly. Many diasporas try to trap their motherland in the amber of their own memories, but I think Indians maintain a reciprocal relationship with the mother country, and Pippa Rann can help do this. So, any thoughts and comments on that, both from you, Prabhu and Jyoti?
Jyoti, why don't you start off?
Well, I think Indians tend to be both the harshest critics of India because we can't remember any of the good stuff, and we also sometimes have the most rose-tinted spectacles possible, as if there's nothing that could possibly be wrong in India. So I fear the extremes, and I hope for balance in the conversations, in the narratives. And I think that's fair about India. You know, India is a fast-growing economy. India is going places. India has some pretty bad records when it comes to some aspects as well. And so, let's be honest about the fact that this is a place that's mixed. But within the diaspora, I would imagine that there's a great opportunity to capture some of the thinking about what is happening inside India as seen from that perspective, but to find a way to connect it to what is happening on the ground and see if there is something that can develop out of that. So I suspect as a publisher and as someone involved in the media, you have an opportunity to find a way to not be stuck in the extreme narratives, but also to connect the hopes and aspirations of people inside India as well as those outside.
Prabhu?
Yes, I think it's very important to make sure that the extremes don't just simply get reflected and amplified, but that the extremes can be in dialogue with each other. So I have no problem with publishing a book that is completely rose-tinted, and I have no problem with publishing a book which is relatively negative. But I want there to be overall a balance in the portfolio between the positive and the negative aspects of the country. But I think it's more important not just for the dialogue to take place, but for us all to realize that through the contradictions of India, the extreme wealth and the extreme poverty, some of the most intelligent and highly educated people in the world, and some of the most intelligent people in the world who never have the opportunity to get educated. From all this churn of the country, we will be able to come up with solutions, not just for India, of course for India, but also for the world, because the world has the same problem. China has the same problem. Africa has the same problem. Latin America has the same problem. So I'm hoping that, and of course, America increasingly has the same problem. So I'm hoping that out of India will come positive solutions which we can hold up as beacons of hope for the whole world, not just for India, but of course for India first.
Right. So Prabhu and Jyoti, I think we've had a robust discussion in the past hour, and we are nearing our conclusion time. So I want to just wrap this up with a couple of things. The first thing is, one, thank you so much for hosting this and launching this book house in your wife's memory. We wish you all the best, and this comes from all of us, including those of us who watched you on YouTube now and on Facebook. I think the general consensus has been very positive, heartwarming, wishing you a lot of luck. So I just want to echo that sentiment as well. And secondly, just mention to people, please go to Pippa Rann Books to subscribe to the newsletter so that they'll be invited to the launch of the first book and be able to hear all the other books that are coming out, be informed on that as well. And I just want to give first Jyoti some closing thoughts and then let you conclude, Prabhu.
Well, Prabhu, it's been really exciting to hear the story, and MR, thank you for hosting it so superbly well. I can imagine Pippa would just be thrilled by what we have just heard today. I think it would be something that would really have excited her to think of a way in which the country that she loved so much would be reflected in an imprint that has her name on it, but not just reflected, but rejoiced in, celebrated, and even where necessary, the magnifying glass is put to some of the problems that we face in India. And I think for her, it would be amazing. So it's a fantastic tribute to a woman who loved India, who loved God, and was wanting to do everything she could to serve the people around her. So she'd be excited. I think your whole family would be excited by this, and I certainly, as a friend of the family and even a student of Philippa, I'm really excited by this and looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Great. Thanks, Jyoti. Prabhu, some closing thoughts? I don't see him.
I think we'll have to accept that he made his closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think so. I think he disappeared. But anyway, I want to leave the viewers. I want to thank the viewers. I want to thank Prabhu and you, Jyoti, for the conversation. This has been a fantastic launch. And like I said, let's keep in touch via the website and newsletters. And I'm so delighted to have hosted this, had the opportunity to host Prabhu and you, Jyoti. So all the best.
Thank you, MR.
Thank you. Bye-bye.